the Zen Patriarch. So welcome to the Zen Patriarch. I'm happy that you're here. It's really great to meet you. And today we, except for, of course, we know already koans. We know this and know that. We know koans. But Mondo, we didn't know Mondo. Mondo, I'm going to give you a definition of Mondo. And I found a different book too for the Zen education. And that is Zen Buddhism by Mr. Christmas. He was the founder or the director of the Zen Buddhism in England. He wrote a book and, well, I used a little bit of it. Just like this idea of Mondo came back to me to share. Because the interesting thing is that even though I'm not necessarily a Zen master, Zen teacher, I do the same things. I don't know. Like if you would ask me a question, like which is part of the Mondo, it's like the devotee, the student, here's the word. The student asks a question, and then the Mondo response would be, in fact, a quick, cut through the chase kind of answer that would, in fact, bring you into a different sphere. Like your question, you forget about it. You forget about your question. The answer that you get is not logical at all. And now you might recognize this. If you ask me a question, I can give you an answer that can go all the way, because there's no logic in it, but there's continuously inspiration running through with associations that are divine and not so they're brand new. It's creative. What happens is what I mean. It's not like, okay, from my experience in the past, now I give you this answer. No, it is like it's literally given on the spot. Now that can appear as totally chaotic, but it all has a function. Even in the videos that I make too, like even the videos that we're presenting or the classes that you're taking part in. Like that's exactly the thing that's happening. It doesn't seem logical at times, or it seems almost like contradictory, but it doesn't really matter. So this is really like what a Mondo would be in demonstration. And yeah, great. So another aspect. Koans as well as the Mondo is like both have the same function, in fact, to explode your intellect, to literally put some TNT under it and blow it, because it's mind-blowing what's being shared. And we take a look at that today, of course, with the expressions that you found or that you accepted as to take on for your project, which is great. Like, yeah, lovely, because there's so much, like you see them everywhere. So now I opened up A Course in Miracles this today, and I see koans right there. It's like there was a koan brought to me just like that, just like that. I'll share it with you. That's no other thing than a koan. So Jesus Christ of Nazareth was a great Zen master too, absolutely. So his expressions that we shared today too, about the love of God, are the voice of God, are very beautiful too. Now in the Zen book, there was the same title, Voice of God. That's why I came to the title for today, like the Voice of God. In fact, that is, you are part of the voice of God. And you can say like the voice of God is speaking to me. Yes, absolutely. It is what you are. Like, yeah, it's speaking to you from within. Not just as a voice. No, it moves you. What else do you think is moving you in your sense of self? What do you think is moving you? What is the spark of life in you? Why do you open your eyes in the morning? What is moving your eyelids? So it's that close, like closer than your breathing is what we hear in the Bible. It's like it's closer than breathing. It's closer than breathing. Now try that. It's like that's a beautiful koan in itself too. Closer than breathing. This is incredible. So there are more, and yeah, it's just a total pleasure. It's almost like, wow, there's another flower in the garden. Here's another flower in the garden. Though the plum tree is flowering. That's great too. But here are other flowers too. Really lovely. So it's a great delight to share this with you. So I love that expression too. Like self-nature is one nature. There are not different natures. There are not different selves. The voice of truth. In Japan, as in China, the most famous devices are the Mondo, a form of rapid question and answer, which sounds like sparks flashing between two terminals, and the koan, an enigmatic phrase insoluble by the intellect, which is often a compressed form of a Mondo. In other words, like the essence taken out of a Mondo. Neither has any meaning for the rational mind. Now, this sounds really good. Mondo often involves seemingly illogical or paradoxical questions and answers. These exchanges are designed to push the student beyond the limitations of rational thought and conceptual understanding. The master's responses can be abrupt, challenging, or even nonsensical from a conventional perspective, aiming to shock the student into a moment of insight. Okay, so here's a word from Zen Master Hakuin. I shared this with you too in the syllabus. For such as, reflecting within themselves, testify to the truth of self-nature, to the truth that self-nature is one nature, having gone beyond the ken of sophistry, for them opens the gate of the oneness of cause and effect. For them opens the gate of the oneness of cause and effect, and straight runs the path of non-duality and non-trinity, abiding with the not particular in particulars. Whether going or returning, they remain unmoved, taking hold of the not thought in the thoughts. In every act, they hear the voice of truth. So the voice of truth. And the gate of the oneness of cause and effect, that sounds really great. It sounds very much like a black hole that I use a lot. Like the black hole, cause and effect are still active up to the edge of the black hole, where you are attracted to, like as nothing else, the love of God, in fact. Like you're attracted to the love of God, like nothing else. But there's a point. So it's like you're being attracted to this, I call it the black hole, but in the gate you can call it or whatever. But I use the black hole now just to describe it. You could say like on the edge of the black hole is cause and effect, is moving around. It's bouncing back at each other. It seems to be separate still. But then they come closer together. So they come so close together that cause and effect are indistinguishable. Now this is the relationship of the Father and the Son, you can say. Like you're so attracted to God that you come to a certain point, you literally can't distinguish yourself any longer from God. And this is like the point of no return in the science with the black holes. Like it's the point of no return. If you go beyond that point, there's no way of getting back out of it. So in other words, you're going to be pulled in it. And spaghettified. I love that word. Spaghettified into the black hole, like stretched out in space-time as never before. As never before. and in fact converted to light. It's like you literally come out on the other side. You could say it is a birth channel. You come out on the other side as light, as radiation, as the great rays of God, you could say. So that's why this is a great comparison with the gate of the oneness of cause and effect, where cause and effect come together, where opposites come together. Here is it like in the non-duality and in the non-trinity. And this I like too, because it is, yes, we have heard of the Trinity, like the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We all know this, but they're not separate. So there's a dissolution of the Trinity in that sense too. If it's all one, if it's one, it's one. It's not different things. So this is lovely. This is really beautiful. So that's so fundamental. That's being shared in such a fundamental way. I love that. Now, here was the Mondo idea. It's like the quick responses in question and answer. Now this you can recognize when we have an exchange together. For instance, in a private healing session or whatever. It's like that can go slow, it can go quick, but one thing happens is that you come into a place where you give up trying to understand what's going on, and that is actually not disturbing. It is more like, well, it's new, it's fresh, but that is what it always will be anyway. It will always be new. It will be fresh. It will, like fresh manna, if we want to keep it biblical. But we don't need to keep it biblical, but we can. Here's one that came through. This is like the perfect koan, if you ask me. This is from A Course in Miracles. I do not know what anything, including this, means. See, this would be the perfect koan. I do not know what anything, including this, means. I do not know what anything, including this, means. Well, let's do this with some music. I do not know what anything, including this, means. And so, I do not know how to respond to it. And I will not use my own past learning as the light to guide me now. I do not know what anything, including this, means. And so I do not know how to respond to it. And I will not use my own past learning as a light to guide me now. I do not know what anything, including this, means. And so I do not know how to respond to it. I will not use my own past learning as the light to guide me now. So that's such a fundamental expression that I love to share it. That's why I did that. And so here we continue then. Now does your ancient overlearning stand implacable before the voice of truth and teach you that its lessons are not true? Too hard to learn, too difficult to see, and too opposed to what is really true. Yet you will learn them, for their learning is the only purpose of your learning skill the Holy Spirit sees in all the world. Now does your ancient overlearning stand implacable before the voice of truth and teach you that its lessons are not true? So this is the ego mind again. It's like it's coming there. Now you stand in front of it, and it tells you that these lessons of the Holy Spirit are not true, of the voice of truth are not true. Too hard to learn, too difficult, and too opposed to what is really true. Yet you will learn them, for their learning is the only purpose for your learning skill the Holy Spirit sees in all the world. And this is like how you use, I don't understand it. Oh, that's too difficult for me to learn. This, like all the devastation that comes with a teaching process. Like the whole thing is then, oh, that's too difficult to learn. I don't understand what this is about. No, that's not for me right now. So you come with your defenses, in fact. Now, this is what I shared with the idea of the fear. In fact, the fear of the ego is to be discovered. It's afraid to be discovered. So that's why it's interesting to take a look at that. It's like it's afraid to be discovered. And now here it says, well, it will work anyway. It will work. It is the truth. So it's like there's the conflict exactly where the conflict can be in your awakening. Admitting to what is true. It's almost like you're on the edge of the black hole. You're on the edge and still trying to separate cause and effect. Like, I don't understand what that is. Instead of accepting the idea, you already defend it. So you keep it apart as in cause and effect, keeping cause and effect apart, which is really the nature of what you do as a human being. You make time, literally, by stretching out cause and effect. So this you see here too, in the expression that I share. So what to do about that? Like, well, admitting that you don't know how to respond to any of the situations that you're in, you don't know how to respond to it. You don't know what it means. And that is a very strange thing, in fact, because the universe is what meaning is. Now you say, I don't understand, like you admit to it. I don't understand anything, like including this means. I don't know what it means. But I will not use my past learning as my guide, as my light to guide me now. So that's very interesting in that sense. It's like you admit that you don't know the situation, but instead of trying to figure it out, now you're not going to do that. See, and then the thing that comes up is then, you could say, ego response, or the superficial impulses that we talked about yesterday. The superficial impulses will tell you, oh, here's an alternative, try this, it should work. Here it is, here's your answer, boom. This literally comes to the surface when you're in a situation that seems to be so intense and so difficult to get out of, or you feel such strange tension that you think like, well, I need to get rid of this for one way or another. I want to get rid of this. I don't want this any longer. This might be very recognizable to you. So now here, that exactly is in fact what this is about. Now you're not going to do anything. You stick with the program, you could say. You stick with the things that we do, the meditation, the exercise, the lessons of the day, the thoughts of today, ponder them, taking time to let them affect you. And then you see, slowly but certainly, you go literally through almost like an atmosphere where you're suddenly out of the whole influence of your ego mind. Like literally you go through this atmosphere and suddenly you're in outer space, in that sense, in outer clarity, where everything falls into place. So this is the offering. Also in Zen, of course, it's like this, in that sense, the same story. So it's the dissolution of cause and effect. They fall together, recognizing the oneness in cause and effect. Cause and effect come together. This is, to make it then really personal again, it's like you are in fact including everything in. Instead of your tendency to separate yourself off, even from truth, but also from anyone that you meet, you keep a distance. You say like, well, let's take it slow, or whatever. It's like you in fact already defend yourself. Now, that is taking time. That's making time literally to let that process occur, but it is already one. So now you in fact pull it apart to stretch it in time, to recognize eventually that they are one, while you actually know that right from the beginning. That's why you were rejecting it. Does that make sense? I think so, absolutely. So this is how that works. So the natural impulse of a human being is to separate yourself off and say like, well, maybe another time. No, this is not for me. No. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Always like making a little wall around yourself. Then this truth doesn't know that. It doesn't know any of that. Here's one. Love created you like itself. And that's also a koan, in fact. Love created you like itself. Now try to dissociate yourself from that. Love created you like itself. Instead of, well, you cannot dissociate yourself from this. Hear the truth about yourself in this. Try to realize in the shorter practice periods that this is not your tiny solitary voice that tells you this. Your tiny solitary voice that tells you this. This is the voice for God, reminding you of your Father and of yourself. This is the voice of truth, replacing everything that the ego tells you about yourself with the simple truth about the Son of God. You were created by love, like itself. If you would lay aside the ego's voice, however loudly it may seem to call, if you will not accept its petty gifts, which give you nothing that you really want, if you will listen with an open mind which has not told you what salvation is, then you will hear the mighty voice of truth, quiet in power, strong in stillness, and completely certain in its messages. Listen and hear your Father speak to you through his appointed voice, which silences the thunder of the meaningless and shows the way to peace to those who cannot see. Listen and hear your Father speak to you through his appointed voice, which silences the thunder of the meaningless and shows the way to peace to those who cannot see. We're going to continue with some expressions that were sent in, and taking a look at the koans that came to the service. So that's what we're going to do in the non-public part that starts right now.